Was this all a game to KC to win the 100K? And because he has not won the 100K, he is on a smear campaign against Anaya. Hey there, it's Anonymous Tea, where we spill the tea anonymously. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, YouTubers. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day today, sending good vibes, sending positivity, sending blessings, and good energy to each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, anything I say is alleged and in my very, very personal opinion. This for entertainment purposes only. None of this is personal. The Copyright Act of 1976 is in the description box. Some meat and potatoes, some housekeeping items. So, today we are talking Love Island USA Season 8. So, before I get into this video, I want y'all to keep in mind, we all have our opinions, whether we agree or disagree. I don't know any of these people, you know what I'm saying, to hate anybody or any of the things or any of the sort, right? However, there have been some problematic things that I feel like needs to be discussed. Now, y'all saw that I did a reaction video to After Sun in which Casey called Anaya fragile, right? And I feel like a lot of his commentary was walking back everything he said in the villa. Right? It's giving performative. And so I want to shout out this person that is on the Twitters. And their name is NK3 Play 2. And they go by the display Slave to the Virgo's Groove, right? But I feel like there were some interesting points in their tweets, in their thread, that I want to talk about with y'all. So the first tweet says the following. I'll say it, Casey came for the money and probably to get some ASS, but mostly the money. He realized he didn't like Anaya, but assumed she'd be an easy path to victory. The moment Anaya began questioning his intentions, she became a liability because she impacts how he is perceived. Casey was also intimidated by Anaya's socioeconomic status. She comes from an upper middle class two-parent household with a present and active father. The moment he found that out, he knew they wouldn't work because what can Casey do for an Anaya that her father cannot? Meanwhile, Casey refused to pursue Soul, not because of Anaya like he claims, but because he didn't want to compete with Sincere and lose to him again. Again, like he did on day one, Melanie and Anaya were at Sincere's door because they were more compatible based on the questions asked. KC latched on to Corbin because Corbin moves the way he wants to, fully confident in himself no matter what. Meanwhile, KC resents Sincere because he can't compete with them. HLL. Sincere even gets to lie and get away with it, unlike KC. Newsflash, Sincere is better at it. Casey got to Casa, started exploring like he wanted, and found someone that wanted him and only him, Tay. When he found out about Carl and Anaya, he said he wasn't happy for her and didn't care. Casey wasn't happy because Carl could ruin his plans to humble and humiliate Anaya. Mind you, in the same scenes, Casey said he and Anaya never had anything in common, so why not be happy for her to move on? Because Casey's intentions were to humiliate Anaya because she didn't quietly settle for the BS he was feeding her. When he came back from Casa, Casey could barely contain himself at seeing Anaya standing there alone and single. The speech he gave about Anaya coming from a good family, saying that she'll go on to do great things, confirmed what I said earlier. Casey resents Anaya's socioeconomic status. Casey thought Anaya was going home. He might have clapped, but he was not happy about Carl's return because Anaya was a constant reminder of his actions, not only for him and other Islanders, but also the audience. And Casey needed the audience to get him to the end. As for Casey's apology, I'm 90% sure it was BS. The producers obviously liked him and Anaya, and they were trying to give him a redemption arc the same way they did by bringing back Carl for Anaya. The problem with KC is his mask kept slipping. KC saying exactly what viewers had been saying for weeks in his apology to Anaya was weird because he'd struggled to communicate anything clearly for weeks. But he suddenly has all that clarity post-movie night. I'm not buying it, and I'll circle back to that later. The girlfriend proposal exposed his true colors again. despite all the goodwill Casey had built off of apologizing to Anaya. The statement that Tay had proven herself worthy of being his girlfriend was ridiculous. He talks about women as if he is doing them a favor. Then the big family dinner after him and Tay find out they've been dumped. When he and Anaya are saying goodbye, she congratulates him on finding Tay, and he specifically congratulates her on making the finals. He was never happy for her to find Carl, and money was always his priority. Casey's intentions were to humble and humiliate Anaya for not cooperating and keeping him from that money, and his performance on Aftersun reiterated all of that. In one breath, Anaya is fragile and needs constant reassurance about their connection. And next, Casey and Anaya's connection wasn't natural, according to Casey, and he's disappointed in himself for not being straightforward with Anaya, even though he said that he communicated to Anaya. And lastly, his statement about him having to grind for everything that he has. Casey resents that Anaya seemingly hasn't had to do that, and he can relate to Tay because of that. Had he just been honest day one, it might have been easier for him. There also was a quoted tweet that also was accurately pointed out about how Casey tried to say he 100% communicated to her to, I wasn't straightforward with her, like, okay. And so then the response was, in a matter of minutes, he contradicts himself, and the host just let it go. He was doing the same SHIT in the villa. So as a result of this, there are several fans who are pulling receipts of KC of the number of times that he is telling Anaya that everything is fine with their connection. Their connection is so perfect. It would have to take a lot for a day or a couple of days for somebody to come in and infiltrate and all of this and all of that. You know what I'm saying? And I just want to highlight some things. You know what I'm saying? That everything was fine as long as Anaya sat there and was quiet. Shut up and dribble, right? Just shut up and enjoy these 6 weeks, right? But I still feel that Casey always had intentions of doing nonsense at Casa. I still believe that. But also the fact when his eyes lit up when Anaya said her father was an NBA dad. And I wish she didn't tell Casey that. You know what I'm saying? I wish a lot of things, Neil. Now I wish she would have just chose Sean. You know what I'm saying? And then we could have had like a real love triangle with her, Sean, and then bringing in Carl and really shake things up. I think that could have been really good TV. But unfortunately, KC thought by doing all of those performative speeches, by calling Anaya the blueprint and this beautiful black woman, beautiful dark-skinned black woman, like he's not doing that with anybody else. You know what I'm saying? Even Carl's not pulling any of that nonsense. Casey thought that that was reassurance. Because, again, what reassurance did Anaya need the first couple of weeks when you know what I'm saying? When the bombshells, it wasn't happening like that, right? And nobody wanted Casey. That's the whole thing. Nobody wanted him. Soul can say whatever she wants to say in these interviews now. But ultimately, Casey did not want to move on that because of Sincere. And technically, that would be the second girl that primarily was interested in Sincere first. And I feel like that's the real reason KC was punishing Anaya. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not just the fact that nobody chose him, but it's the fact that she chose Sincere over him. And also Soul chose Sincere over him, right? So ultimately as well, the Corbin piece of it all, and I said this in my Aftersun review, that KC didn't like Corbin either. KC was jealous of Corbin as well because all of the women found Corbin very attractive, very handsome, all of this and all of that. They just got annoyed with him asking each girl for a kiss in every single conversation, right? And Kenzie was the only one to oblige, right? But I feel like Corbin, if he would have really stuck things out with Melanie and really wooed her and wined and dined her and really made it difficult for her to ever go back to Sincere, Melanie and Corbin would have won the show. But because of the sneaking around that Corbin and Kenzie were doing while Corbin was in a couple with Melanie, and Melanie found out that there was some sneaky stuff going on, and then she started sleeping out in soul ties, you know what I'm saying? Part of that was because of Sincere, but also I think she knew as well that, something else was going on with Corbin and Kenzie, they definitely could have, potentially won the show and gave Britney some competition. Casey also not wanting to explore really until Casa tells me he was afraid of Anaya, right? He was not just afraid of Anaya, he was afraid of that villa. Because he knew that villa would have torn him to shreds, and he knew that if there was any potential votes that could have sent an Islander home, they would have all band together and got rid of him. So it confirms what Zack Attack said in that challenge, that he clung to Anaya for safety. And then what is crazy is that he is saying all this stuff about Anaya at Casa Amor, right? Talking about how they have nothing in common. She's on a tight leash. You know what I'm saying? All of this and all of that. And then I think Casey was pleased to see Anaya by herself at the Casa recoupling. I do think that's why he kept looking down and kept looking around and being weird, because he probably did want to laugh. He probably did think that all of this was hilarious, because ultimately, after the conclusion of the Casa recoupling, KC was laughing with Corbin because Corbin was making fun of Anaya, saying, "You didn't pick me." And I don't know why people are trying to gaslight the situation and make it seem like what Anaya saw and heard for herself is all in her head, when she's the one that was at that villa. She would know better than any of you and I. They were all laughing and making fun of her. You know what I mean? And it's the fact that KC did not have the basic empathy or sympathy to even check on her and say, "Listen, look at here. I found a better connection. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to cause harm, all of this and all of that." But he enjoyed this. He enjoyed for the past couple of days that, the aftermath of all of that Anaya was the one that was single and vulnerable. He was probably expecting her to be dumped that night, but that was never going to happen. That was never going to happen because Anaya is the story for the season. Anaya and KC were the story. They were never going to get, you know what I'm saying? It was never going to happen where Anaya was going to be getting rid of when she is driving all these social media talking points. But where things failed for KC is he was not expecting Carl to come back. He wanted Anaya single and vulnerable and potentially in such a desperate position to have to grovel to get KC back or fight with TT over him, which is why he kept mentioning in conversations, you know what I'm saying? I hope things are good with you and TT and da-da-da-da-da. And Anaya's like, well, why wouldn't they be? We're getting along just fine. And KC didn't like that. Because he was expecting TT, you know what I'm saying, to be all rah with all the bad stuff that he said about Anaya behind her back to Casey. And I also believe that the apology was fake news. It was phony baloney, because even in the first attempted apology, it was Anaya that called him out, that we've been sitting here and not once have you tried to apologize. Not once have you tried to say anything. And then when he tried to do an apology, he was like regurgitating what Anaya previously said to incorporate into an apology that was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry if." But really, it wasn't a real apology, right? And so then, the communication issues, right? Where Casey is not able to articulate himself properly in these conversations with Anaya, but all of a sudden the apology that took place after movie night, you're all of a sudden able to hit on all of the issues. It is if you were coached. It is if production told you which things to specifically say to smooth things over. And then, you know what I'm saying? You have that girlfriend proposal that I still feel is performative, because ultimately, there was nothing in that girlfriend proposal that was for TT. It was all about KC. It was all self-serving. Like I said, in previous seasons, across all of the versions of this show, anytime somebody has done a girlfriend proposal or a special gesture or whatever the case may be, they try to incorporate aspects of themselves as a couple. Casey made it all about him. Look at me with these pots. Look at me with this sand. Look at me with this fire. You know what I'm saying? It was nothing personal or meaningful for TT. It was all about KC. and y'all are eating it up. Then also, the conversation after the family dinner was crazy when Casey got eliminated, because I even honed on that on my review, where Casey, Anaya's like, I'm glad you found somebody you cherish, and TT and everything else. Casey never likes to hear Anaya compliment him with another woman because it's not real. Just like when Anaya was like, why don't you just go and pursue things with Soul? Like, just leave me alone. Casey does not like that. You know what I'm saying? But because ultimately this was a means to an end. So instead of Casey saying back, I'm happy that you found Carl, I am happy that you were with Carl, he says, you know what I'm saying? Congratulations on making the finals, because to him, that was what his goal was. That was his goal, making the finals, potentially winning that 100K. But you fumbled that when you fumbled Anaya. And I wish one of these interviewers would tell Casey that he and Anaya had the 100K for this show for the first couple of weeks. That you two were at the top of every single poll. All the demographics loved you and Anaya. And then you started being weird. And then Anaya found out you started being weird and wanted to get some questions answered from you being weird. And you would not own the weirdness. So then, of course, if somebody is gaslighting you and not being honest about who they are and what they are and all the things, you're going to look crazy. You know what I'm saying? You're going to look out of your mind. Anaya's asking for a serious conversation. You want to laugh. You want to laugh because you want to try to diminish this. And then this just makes the letter look so much worse about how locked in you are with Anaya. And even when there's problems, there's nobody else that you want but her. You said all of that and still brought back somebody else from Casa Amor. Make it make sense. Casey should have kept things with Anaya as a friendship couple. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was after week 1 or week 2 or week whatever. You know what I'm saying? Kept it a friendship couple. Explore all you wanted to. But again, who were you exploring if nobody in that villa wanted you? Even Soul said the reason that she went forward with Sincere was he was the only one that talked to her. So there was no action on your part, you know what I'm saying, to say how you really felt. Y'all had several conversations, y'all had several chats, but by the time Soul's bringing up y'all exploring anything, it was too late. It was too late. But KC had already talked about his plan to humiliate and humble Anaya. He was already cracking jokes with, about Anaya to Corbin before Casa Amor even existed, when he was making the grandma comment and just pointing to her, looking at her and laugh. Like, I just found that just so childish, so immature. You know what I'm saying? Just disgusting behavior. Casey never liked Anaya, but felt entitled to her. And felt entitled to her body, which is gross. And Casey thought, because Anaya was a dark-skinned black woman, and he probably would have tried to pull this with Trinity as well, that because of the history of dark-skinned black women on the show and having a strong fan base and a strong support, he felt that was his ticket to the 100K. But because nobody picked him, he held all this resentment, right? Except for with Melanie. Apparently, it's okay to follow Melanie and ignore the rest of the core four. Make that make sense, right? But saying that they had nothing in common, but in the apology, making it seem as though that we did have good times, we did have all these great things that were happening, to then saying tonight on After Sun it wasn't natural, basically confirming Anaya's suspicions that you were being fake and phony. And then just talking about how, you know what I'm saying, you came from wiping ASS to Love Island and all of this and all of that. And you don't like the fact that Anaya comes from a good family. You don't like the fact that Anaya comes from a successful family. You don't like the fact that Anaya comes from a family that is not going to let anybody play in her face. They would have saw, you know what I'm saying? They would have saw right through you the moment that they saw you, that you were being fraudulent, right? But it's just crazy how people defend this nonsense with KC and think that this behavior is okay. You and Tate are trying to go on a run that you guys are receiving hate and negativity because y'all are both black, as if there are not black women still in the villa, and then you are framing your entire press run to run a smear campaign on another black woman. But everybody's anti-black. Make it make sense. So is Anaya no longer a black woman because she is in a couple with a man who is half Asian and half white? Like is that what we're doing? That if you're in an interracial couple, right? Is that the same that applies for Trinity? Is Trinity not a black woman either because she's in a couple with a white man? Like is this what we're doing now? Is this what we're doing now? Like it's so insane to me that this is where we are. But I just wanted to give kudos to this user, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like there were several points that were made, and there's even more points, you know what I'm saying, that we can go on and on and on about, especially when KC made the comment, I think it was day 2, about how he's not into any chivalry. You know what I'm saying? Not putting the jacket over the puddle of water when it's raining. You know what I'm saying? The days of men being chivalrous are over, and all the things. And Anaya wants chivalry, right? She wants her Prince Charming. She wants him to do things for her, open the door for her, pull out the chair for her. Just doing basic things that shouldn't even have to have a response. And then Casey tried to walk some stuff back. And then he said that he was not a grand gestures type of person, isn't into like the prince and fairy tale stuff. But the moment that you saw an opportunity to try to secure yourself in the finale, you pull a grand gesture. But you also say, well, was it the next day or the day after? That you're not going to be the one to tell Tay that you love her first. You're the one telling Sincere, you know what I'm saying, that she's finally earned her spot for me to ask her to be my girlfriend. No. And I can't believe some of y'all are eating all of this up. So what podcast is next, right? Speedy or Keke Palmer, right? Because what's going to happen is Casey is going to go on this press tour with all of these people who are going to try to validate his nonsense and not call him out. And it's really disgusting to me that the number of people who have said that Anaya is the sweetest and the nicest person in that villa and is very genuine, is very kind, that y'all are coming out here and just adding to the hate train and just adding to the negativity. And I just don't understand it. Because the black women, especially the black female islanders on this show, already receive enough hate, enough negativity, enough discourse, and y'all lived with her for 6 weeks. So y'all know what's true and what's not true. But because some of y'all are bitter that y'all did not make it as far as Anaya, y'all want to take it out on her, and y'all want to hide behind the people that don't like her. And follow the people who might have more followers than her for clout. Like I see it as clear as day. And it's really unfortunate that y'all are not standing on any business. And y'all are standing on some BS just so that y'all can get some clout and some fame. But ultimately, what is going to be your game plan long term? Because you can't spend the next year dragging out Anaya nonsense as part of your campaign is why you deserve to be famous. And for Tate, you know what I'm saying, to stick around with somebody who is still obsessed with Anaya tells me everything I need to know. Tells me everything I need to know. Why isn't we cannot discuss Casey and Tate's connection? But KC can have a whole segment all about Anaya. You know what I'm saying? And completely walk back everything that he said in that villa. Completely walk back all that goodwill. If I'm Anaya in these interviews, I would be like, listen, look at here. I will address all KC questions at the reunion. Next question. But because what you're not going to do is be out here playing in my face, right? And if she does any combined interviews with Carl, I'm sure Carl will gladly say whatever he needs to say. But this is such a coward move, right? It's a coward move because you know right now, Anaya is still, well, technically now, she's probably at the Fiji Hotel at this point. She probably doesn't have her phone back yet because I don't believe that they're allowed to have their phone backs yet until the episode airs. They can't participate or anything like that. But wait till Anaya sees this interview. Wait till her family tells her about this interview. Like this is just diabolical. This is just diabolical, you guys. So, nonetheless, that is it for this video. I need y'all to do me the biggest favor, though, and that is to hype the video. Hype the video, please. There's that. That is it. That is all. Es todo es final. Es finito. It's the end of the road. It's the end of the line for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're notified the moment I post the content on my channel. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys again very soon.